See Cinema here, and we're gonna talk about a movie that's famous for playing around with the audience expectations, The Sixth Sense. Please join us. The first thing that comes to mind when discussing M. Night Shyamalan's cinema is the use of plot twists. Curiously enough, there's a scene in The Sixth Sense that talks about this.
We have to add some twists and stuff.
As Cole wisely says, every obstacle or twist of a story, no matter how tiny, serves the purpose of creating an eventual bigger twist. The word twist literally means to change. In this respect, the twists in The Sixth Sense aren't just the great revelations or the narrative surprises, but, and despite how simple it may sound, a twist is everything that makes the story change. The twist ending of The Sixth Sense is so strong, in part, for the constant introduction of other twists. Let's try to explain this. The twists will be present in many different ways. One kind of twist may be a new obstacle to the characters, other kind could be a surprise to the audience. Nonetheless, today we will be focusing on a specific type of twist present in The Sixth Sense, when a filmmaking technique is used in a different way than what we saw earlier in the movie. In a way, The Sixth Sense is a film that constantly, in a matter of speaking, changes the rules in terms of how the many filmmaking tools are used. If at first a camera movement is used to show us something, then a similar camera movement could show us the opposite. What we mean to say is that Shyamalan uses the multiple filmmaking techniques in a sort of twisted way, constantly changing how they operate. We believe that this strategy is crucial in building the big final twist of the film, as it generates a static atmosphere of constant change and surprise. There are three elements that exemplify what we mean: the use of the fade-ins, the camera and actors' movement, and the color red. First, let's go to the very beginning of the film, to the shot that starts up the movie. The first thing we see is a tiny light bulb slowly lighting a dark and cold cellar. This action introduces to a central position, darkness versus light. It seems a little vague to say it that way, but the director of the film finds a way to enlarge the scope of this apparently simple theme. Throughout the film, we will witness lots and lots of fades to black and the end of many scenes. These fades to black represent the constant darkness, the emotional darkness that affects the characters, the impossibility of communication that exists between them. Nonetheless, once Cole and Malcolm resolve their respective conflicts, we no longer see a fade to black. Instead, at the end of the film, we see a fade to white. The alteration in the type of fading follows a change in the character's situation, substituting darkness for light. What happened up to that point suffers a twist. To summarize, we should see the beginning and ending side by side. If at first there was only darkness, at the end there will be light. As Cole wisely told us, you have to add twists and stuff. The use of the fades-in, an editing tool, shows us how M. Night Shyamalan introduces a filmmaking technique in a certain way, only to change its meaning later, twisting the story in the process. Now, let's talk about the camera and actors' movement. When Malcolm tries to reach out for Cole by playing a guessing game, we see Malcolm through Cole's point of view, while he moves backwards away from him, implying that Cole and Malcolm are estranged from each other. However, reaching the middle of the movie, just before Cole confesses his ability to see dead people, we now see Cole through Malcolm's point of view, employing a camera movement opposed to the one we saw before, moving forwards instead of backwards. This tracking shot tells us two important things: that these characters will be closer than ever, and that, ironically, as Cole is able to see them, the dead people are also capable of seeing Cole. The final revelation, the twist ending, is so powerful, in part due to the introduction of this sort of middle twist. When Cole confesses to Malcolm, and to us, the viewers, the film is dramatically changed. Up to that point, we didn't see any dead people. We are unaware of what Cole is capable of seeing. Also up to that point, the film makes use of an interesting ambiguity. Cole could be suffering from a psychiatric disorder. After this revelation, after this twist in the tale, the audience is invested in the story even more. We now know something else about that world and its characters. Additionally, we now know Cole better, and, as soon as we reach the climax, we will also know Malcolm a little better. The last technique we'd like to address is the use of the color red in the film. At first, this color is used as a barrier between the world of the living and the world of the dead. Everywhere we look, we see red. This color reminds us of the constant separation between these worlds, of the gigantic distance that exists between them. The use of red is very noticeable. However, what seems evident and repetitive again is changed. In a scene near the end, when Malcolm and his wife finally communicate, Shyamalan makes use of a subtlety. Both her cheeks and lips are painted red. She's not cold anymore, as she was before. Here, the use of that color is changed, no longer symbolizing separation and coldness, but starting to represent union and warmth. Okay, to sum up, the twists present in The Sixth Sense aren't just the surprises. The twists are also the change, the additions and suppressions which make the film interesting and enables it to move forward. The greatest quality of The Sixth Sense is that the use of twists is also present in the filmmaking techniques. As we mentioned before, the way these techniques change follows a change in the overall story. The transition from fades to black to a fade to white follows the theme of darkness versus light. The change in the tracking shots and movement of the characters emphasizes their relationships and own nature. And the use of the color red, which begins as the representation of an obstacle, ends up symbolizing the opposite, the everlasting union. Editing, makeup, acting, color serve the purpose of the story, to defy expectations, to constantly change the story around to new and exciting territories. To defy expectations. That's the motto and trademark of Shyamalan cinema. He introduced us to terrifying aliens only to beat them by using water. He directed a fake documentary in which a story about parents and grandparents takes a turn to the macabre. He has created a sort of superhero crossover, a film that teases the viewer with a big and spectacular final confrontation between the good guys and the bad guys, but ends in the least spectacular place imaginable, a parking lot. And the supposed distinction between heroes and villains isn't quite as it seems. As can be seen in The Sixth Sense, and in all his films, in Shyamalan's pictures we shouldn't take anything for granted, as even the tiniest element might get twisted. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, and see you next week on See Cinema.
If you like the video, please comment, like and subscribe.